Hi guys, I'm Aussie Villain, and today we are going to learn about training on Football Manager 2022. Hi guys, I'm Aussie Villain, and welcome to my training tutorial for Football Manager 2022. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this video or you do find it helpful in any way, make sure you hit thumbs up to help other people find it. Leave me lots of feedback, and let's learn all about training. So the training tab is here. Obviously, it's pretty self-explanatory, and this is your overview page. Now, we'll go into sort of each individual tab, but the general thing, I think, with training is, it depends how in-depth you want to go into the game, but a lot of it you can just leave up to your backroom staff, which is what I tend to do, and they do a fine job. There's nothing wrong, I found anyway, with what the backroom staff do. You just maybe need to tweak it here or there. Now, if you do want to do this, and I will do a separate tutorial on staff, but if you go down to responsibilities, there'll be training here, and you can see you can delegate to the assistant or to whatever member of the backroom staff you want to, and just let them take over, and then you can still just tweak from there, and do what you want. And I always get training emails to make sure that I am just keeping an eye on what's going on. I just find it the most time effective way. I don't particularly enjoy getting in-depth into the training side of things. Obviously, it's a necessary part of the game, but I find this way I can keep an eye on what's going on without having to get too involved and to get sucked into a vortex that is the training screen. But if this is what you like, then there is a lot of detail here for you. So you can see here it shows you the formations that you're training. Now, I currently just have one, which is maybe a little bit silly. If you have other tactics that are being trained, it'll show them there, and it'll show you here the familiarity level as well. Now, you can use this to kind of guide what you need to do, whether it's anything really. If it's the passing, if it's creative freedom, if it's pressing. It'll give you an idea there of what is or isn't a strong point of the team. So use this to your advantage and sort of set training accordingly. Other things you might want to do here. Now, if you do get the email for the training, you'll sort of get a top 3 best and worst performers in training. You can click here to bring up how everybody is performing in training. Now, what I do recommend doing, it's what I've always done, is praising, if not all 3, and certainly the best player. So just hit praise. Now, if they're training well, as opposed to developing well, you want to say that you've done a good job training of late. Now, if they're developing well, if you get the thing where they say, the attribute with the green up arrows, then you want to congratulate them for developing really well. Or there's obviously one there for learning a new role as well. So yeah, just make sure that you're actually congratulating them on the right thing. So if it is just this and their training performance, make sure that you are congratulating them on their performance. And likewise, if they're not training well, criticize. And if they're not training well, the effort's not there, then again, it's the top one. If it's that they're not developing well, then it's the bottom one. That's one you typically use for a youngster that's maybe clocking off a bit in training. But typically, I found that they, especially if it's, well, most of the time, they'll sort of, yeah, sorry, boss, I have not been doing the best. It's usually the same guys, to be honest, that that are not training well. But I have on occasion found someone will not be training well. I'll have a word to them, and then they'll be sort of amongst the best performers a week or two later. So it is definitely worth talking to the players and having a conversation. Now, if you do want to congratulate other players, so we'll see here Ben Warland. If you want, usually it'll just prompt you for the top performing guy. But if you go to discuss, warn if you want to criticize training, which we can't actually do, and if you want to praise them for training, it doesn't look like I actually do it, but it will be there, and then you'll come up with the same screen that we just saw. So that is how you will do it if you're not if it's not sort of prompted as one of the top guys there. Now that is sort of it for in terms of this screen. You can see the training session breakdown, match preparation. So these will all basically bring you to this screen here. Now, so this is your training calendar. You can go ahead as far as you want. I wouldn't go too far because fixtures obviously change. And the way that I've done it is I basically let the assistant set it up. And if there's something I feel like we need to do, then I will do that. So, for example, if you're shipping goals left, right, and center, just do defensive training. If you can't score to save yourselves, click on this. You could do attacking training. You can see all the different things there, and it'll tell you roughly how it's going to affect the squad as well. Again, you can see there all the different ones you can do. Now, there's scenarios, a boot camp week, which is more a pre-season. There you can see there, it's just to get fitness back. A week of rest is obviously if everybody's tired. I don't tend to do that mid-season. Tactical style, this is obviously when you pick your style of play, it's they're all the options for you. Again, the assistant does it for me. Vertical tiki-taka is what it usually reverts to. It's not necessarily something that I do. Then there's the pre-season ones. I'll be honest, I just because I do let the assistant do it. I just let them go, and I'm not too bothered about what it is that they're doing in pre-season. I just want match sharpness when I do the friendlies, and again, we'll do a separate tutorial on setting up a pre-season. But if you can't score to save yourselves, then you can go and do that. And again, a lot of if you want to change an individual session, you can bring this up, click on the session, and it will bring up all the different options. Now, it'll tell you what each one does. So I'm not going to go through and explain each individual one because the game does that for you. But again, these are just for general attacking, general possession, sort of do it as a team kind of things. Match preparation. Now, one thing that I will flag, actually I'll flag it up in just a second, but again, you can see match tactics, teamwork, all these sorts of things that you can do in terms of match preparation. Attacking, again, different sorts of attacking, and then you can go down defending, technical. Now, one thing that I will flag up as well is that if your strikers are missing chance after chance after chance conversion training is a good one. If you're not creating chances, chance creation. But these technical ones, I really do like that. If I'm not sure what to do, then I'll tend to do the technical training. Tactical, this can be a good one if you're struggling to score or if you're struggling to defend. The shadow play I've found to be quite effective. Goalkeeping training is not something I've never really just sort of focused on goalkeeper training. But it's there. I mean, I probably should do, but it's there if you want to do it. Set pieces. Now, this is something that I think is an important thing. If you're conceding from set pieces, make sure you go and practice defending them. Likewise, if you have good attacking players from sort of the big lumps from the back, and you're not really scoring, every now and again it's good just to go and throw these in. And again, you can do as many of these through the week if you want. You can also change them if you wanted to, but they're always good to do. And I always, just as a matter of point, every month or so, even if I'm not conceding from set pieces, I'll make a point of going and making sure that we're practicing, just so we don't start conceding from set pieces. So that's there. Physical, this is something that typically you wouldn't need to do so much, but if you find yourself in a situation where your team is conceding a lot of late goals, I would recommend just doing an endurance session. It may be that they're getting tired late in games, and that will help them sort of counteract that. An extracurricular, I've never really, outside of team cohesion and maybe I've never really community outreach. I've never been sure if it should. It should, in theory, in the way that my logic works, is that it should make, especially if you're a smaller team, make people more likely to come to your games. But I've never really seen a big impact from that. With some of my Barletown and Welders saves I've done in recent FMs, I've been trying to do this to get more people to come to the games, and it's never really worked, which is frustrating. So I'm not completely sure exactly what benefit, or if you see any benefit to this sort of from the community coming to games, or if it's just a thing you can do. But these are usually, especially team bonding, good one for pre-season to help any new signings and that sort of bed into the club. Now, one thing I did want to flag up here. Now, the day after a game, there's always recovery, and then you usually have the 2 rest. Now, what you can do, and you can only do it the day after the game. If you go to match preparation, you can review the match. For whatever reason, it doesn't default to that ever. You always have to go and do it manually, but it does. You can see there that the benefits of it does very, very much help. Just helps. So definitely go and look to do that. So that is, as I said, it is for the most part self-explanatory, but you just need to maybe just take a second or two to familiarize yourself with what you need to do. And any problems you're having in the games, this is typically where you will fix it. Now, if you schedules, this is for individual. No, this is to create a different your own sort of schedule that you would custom make. There's other tutorials I'm sure out there for that. I'm not going to do that, but that is how you would do that if you wanted to set up your own custom one. Training units, again, not something I typically get too involved with, but this is, you have a defensive unit, an attacking unit. Now you will have noticed, if we go back to the calendar here, it has the different units or what you do in a particular thing. So you can see there, that's in units if you're defending. So it'll tell you the defensive, what the defenders are doing, or the defensive unit's doing, what the attacking unit's doing, and what the goalkeeping unit's doing. So that's so that is where you basically decide what unit a player is in. Again, for me, it tends to just work fine as the default. Now, mentoring, this is something that I've always just left to the assistant. I've never really got involved in it. It is useful. You can see here that it'll have a significant impact, or if you have good tutors, I should say, it'll have a significant impact on some younger players. It is useful if you have a player that is unambitious or lazy or whatever the attribute is. If you can get them in a mentoring group with other players that have the complete opposite, that are driven or that are ambitious, that sort of thing. It won't make them necessarily the same personality, but it will sort of move them a little bit towards that direction. So definitely worth doing. Again, it's one of those things I just personally can't be bothered individually setting it up. If you want to do that, this is where you would do it. But for me, ask the assistant, and I just make sure I have the best coaching staff I can, so that these things, when I sort of want them to take care of themselves, generally speaking, that they can. Individual coaching. Now, again, I'm going to do a separate tutorial on this, but this is one way you can do it. You can also access it individually through each player. So if you go to training, and then it'll bring up their individual training. So there's two ways to sort of get into that. As I said, I'm going to do a separate tutorial on this, but that is how you would access individual training, and then you would go from there. But again, we'll do a separate tutorial on that one. If players need a rest, this is again how you would do that. And again, another way you can do that is if you go into their profile, if you go to development and rest. So if you get a player that's fatigued, that is one way to, well, that is how, well, generally speaking, that is how you would help them recover sooner or quicker, as opposed to just resting them from games. So it can be decent. You can see there the intensity that they work at on at each individual sort of health setting, I suppose you'd call it. You can go double intensity probably for that one. Probably should do, actually, to be honest. But yeah, anyway, so that you just want to make sure that they're not tiring themselves out. But that again is where you would do that. And that brings us to coaches. Now, again, there's a separate tutorial upcoming on the coaching staff, so I'll go into this a little bit more there. But this is where you can set the coaching responsibilities for training. So you can see here that there's all your coaches down there, including yourself, and all the different categories of coaching. And what you basically want to do is, down the bottom here, have everything as high a star rated as possible, and you don't really ever want to have a heavy workload. Average or light is kind of what you're aiming for. Now, at smaller teams, this just unavoidable. You are going to have heavy training loads, and the star ratings aren't going to be great. But that's kind of, probably don't need you there, but that's kind of what you want to work towards, is having the star ratings as high as possible down the bottom, and then workload. You don't want them working too hard. So yeah, average or light is, generally speaking, where you would want to be headed in that direction. So that is pretty much everything covered, I believe, for training. If you've enjoyed this and found it useful, hit thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. There'll be a bunch of tutorials. There's a Let's Play with Queen of the South, trying to win the Champions League with them. And there'll be loads of other FM stuff through the year as well. Plus, we're doing some Formula 1. There'll probably be some baseball, out of the park baseball back at some point. So lots happening on the channel. It would be great to have you back. So until next time, I've been Aussie Villain. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.